Hello everybody, welcome back to Lead the Way with Dr. John Joseph. It's been such a joy week after week to bring God's Word and leadership principles to all of you. We have over the last few weeks, we've been looking at the topic of the 4 C's of picking great staff. We looked at picking people with character, with competence, with great chemistry. Today we're looking at the 4th C, and this 4th C is culture. What really is culture? Culture is the unwritten practices that are created over a period of time among different organizations or different people groups that people follow in a particular way. This is created over a period of time and they are held in very high regard by the organization, by the people, and often they are quite resistant to change. Culture is the way things have always been done. Culture is the way people would like to do things in the future. Why would they want to do it? Because this is the way it's done. Why would they want to behave in a particular way? Because this is the way everybody behaves in our culture. A lot is attributed to culture. When it comes to a family or it comes to an organization or a ministry, every ministry has a culture. Recently, I had the great joy of speaking to somebody who's a leader of the ministry who was trained as part of in one of our discipleship schools in TROTB. And speaking to the person after a while, I was just catching up with that leader. And the leader got back to me saying, Dr. John, I was talking to another friend and said, one of the things that I hold in such great joy of my association with TROTB ministry was the love they had between each other. They have been truly a family. Did that mean that TROTB did not have challenges or people never had conflicts? No. It was the fact that TROTB had a culture that was pushing for honor, pushing for love, pushing for standing together and honoring one another. So when I heard this, it was a great joy for me because that was a culture that we had created. Culture is so very important. Every organization has a culture and the people in the organization imbibe the culture. Culture is talked about. Culture is, though it is not called culture all the time, it is something that people emphasize. This is how it must be done. This is the way we got to do it. This is how we want to follow it. We have good culture and we have bad culture in an organization. A good culture can be like oxygen, where somebody is finding it difficult to breathe and you put an oxygen mask on him. And when he comes in that environment, he suddenly feels it much more easier to thrive, to live, to breathe. But bad culture can be like carbon monoxide, where you can't see it, but it can kill somebody. So when we are part of a particular organization, it is important for us as leaders, when we are recruiting people, it's important for us to create good culture in the first place. Because if we don't create good culture, I want to assure you, others are going to come in and they're going to build into the organization bad culture. It is very, very important to decide the culture or define the culture of the people that are coming in, because when they come in, either you influence them to transform to your culture or they're going to influence the organization and transform the organization into their culture. So when we pick staff, it's very, very important to make sure they carry good culture or to interpret whether they got bad culture. What really is your culture? To ask the question, every organization has culture. So let's look at some questions. What really is our culture? Do you have an empowering culture? Many organizations are very dictatorial, where the leader decides everything and everybody is just a pawn in his hands and everybody takes orders from him. Or is there a culture of empowering leaders where they have a space to learn, to get mentored, go out there and they can multiply the work? That's an empowering culture. Or a negotiative style of leadership, or a different kinds of leadership that are a culture in a ministry. Walking in love, is that a culture in your ministry or in your organization? Above being right all the time, where love, honoring and loving people are given a high value. So different organizations practice different kinds of culture. In some cultures, in some organizations, the family is valued very high. If a family is going through a challenge, they're given a special care and understanding. They had a baby, they're given understanding. While some other organizations don't care about all of that. They'd say, you had your baby, back to work in 3 days or 7 days or 10 days, depending on whatever you'd like to hear, whatever you'd like to know. So is mission part of your culture? Some people, some organizations don't want to follow a particular culture like that. You had a baby in 3 days, 7 days, they want you back at work. Is mission part of your culture? Some organizations are very passionate about missions, reaching out to the unreached, telling the untold. While some organizations are very inward looking. The culture is focused on your personal holiness, focus on you getting to heaven. And so different organizations follow different cultures. Some organizations love the Gen Next culture. They're all about the next generation. So these are all different kinds of culture. Some organizations stand for truth. Truth is very high on their agenda. Their culture of truth for God's word is very high. Some places, some ministries you're part of, the weaker sections of society, the women or the weaker ones or the handicapped or those people are given high value and high care, while in other organizations they are put down, somebody to be trampled on. What is the culture you have been creating in your organization? Is compassion part of your vision or your culture? Some places have character is held much above charisma. That's part of their culture. All this and so much more, the practices of yesteryears that are carried into tomorrow are the culture of your organization. It can be extremely healthy or it can be extremely toxic. Leaders play a great role in creating culture or changing culture. If you are the leader, what is the culture that you have created in your team, in your small little nuclear team? What is the culture you are creating in your organization? Are you creating culture of working when the leader watches? And not working when nobody asks anything of you? Do you have a culture of taking ownership, and are you passing that on? So if you carry that culture, everything that you carry, you pass it on, or you take time to create it and pass it on to the next generation. They begin to carry that heart. People will either resist that culture or they will fall in line and love that culture. Not everybody likes a culture change. Some people, when you look for picking somebody to be your staff, some people come from an organization where they just didn't have to work too much and they got paid. They got used to being paid for working very little. Oftentimes, in many places I've seen people that come from Christian ministry background, or maybe even the secular, they have to work because of the pay. There are appraisals. Many Christian ministries, there aren't many appraisals. And so, especially in your Asian setting, Christian ministries function on emotion, which means because I'm Christian and you're Christian, and if I got a cold, I can't come to work today. You have to be understanding and you shouldn't cut my pay because I'm Christian, you're Christian. When does a Christian cut pay? Because everything is done in love. And even if we have 3 days off in a month, I take 10 days off for various reasons, but you got to be understanding because you're Christian. See, that's bad culture. When you bring that when you pick someone like that, they resist that change. They resist that change. As a leader, you are responsible for creating positive culture change. And as a leader, if you don't do that, other people will push their culture change onto the organization. People are resistant to this culture change. They have an affinity for the old culture. So therefore, when you pick people, you have to be extremely careful where they come from. What is the culture they come from? Do they have a good work culture? Do they have a bad work culture? Do they have a godly work culture where they want to give the 100% to the organization, 100% to the ministry? This culture is what people are going to be joining into, the culture you've created. So plan to create a positive culture. What can you do in these coming days? Evaluate your culture. Write down what are the good things about the culture of your team, the working culture. Write down some of what are the bad things about the culture in your team. And focus and talk to the team about celebrating good culture. Clapping your hands for somebody does a great job and celebrating that good culture, it reiterates our commitment to that good culture. And then talk to the team about how maybe if somebody's got a bad culture, has got a temper that flies or shouts at somebody, maybe you show them a sign and remind them, hey, that's bad culture. That's something we are going to change in our company and organization. Maybe there can be communicative codes by which you can tell them, this is what we want to change, this is what we're going to look like, and talk about that culture change, apply that culture change, and the culture will begin to change. Creating and sustaining this great culture change is going to take your organization an extremely long way. So character, competence, and chemistry had a lot to do with the individual, but culture has a lot more, not only with the individual, but as an organization for you to create great culture and to model that out for them, and other people coming in, create an environment where they can make a culture shift or a culture change. And if people are resistant to culture change, which way they're going, they can't hang around in that culture very long. They will find it toxic. Either you will ask them to leave or they will leave. So, have a great day. Have a great week ahead. Thank you for being part of Lead the Way with Dr. John Joseph, and looking forward to speaking to you and continue building up in the next episode. God bless you.